Listen, I believe in a prophetic culture, but what most churches have is prophetic ministry. The difference between a prophetic culture and prophetic ministry, in my mind, is in 1 Samuel chapter 9 and 10. In 1 Samuel chapter 9, Saul, who will later become King Saul, meets Samuel the prophet. And Samuel the prophet says to Saul had lost his donkeys, and he was looking for them. And Samuel says to Saul, listen, your donkeys have been found, but tomorrow morning I want you to stay with me, because tomorrow morning I'm going to tell you that all that's in your heart. For aren't you the one that all of Israel's waiting on? And Saul says to Samuel, I don't know why you're talking to me like this. I'm from the smallest tribe and the smallest family in the smallest tribe. I don't know if you know this, but the truth is that Saul's father was one of the greatest warriors in Israel's history. And actually, when you come from a famous family, it either empowers you or it destroys you. You either are intimidated by your father and mother, or you stand on their shoulders. And actually, Saul's father was a famous warrior, the most famous warrior at that time in Israel's history. But Saul thought, all Saul could see is that he came from a small family. Funny part of the story is Samuel said, tomorrow morning I'm going to tell you all that's in your heart. I'm going to tell you all that's in your heart. For aren't you the one basically Samuel's saying, what I'm going to tell you, your heart already knows. Your head don't know it, but your heart knows it. The next morning he anoints Saul king. Remember, he said, your heart knows this. Saul seems totally stunned. He seems to have no idea what's in his heart. But Samuel said, tomorrow morning, I'm going to tell you what's in your heart. Here's the funny part to me. After he anoints him king, he said, I want you to go down to Bethel. By the way, I want you to notice they went to Bethel. Brazeltons, need to get your butts over to Bethel. I want you to go down to Bethel. There's going to be these prophets coming down from the mountains, and you're going to encounter the prophets, and he gives them this instruction. And then he says, and when you encounter the prophets, you're going to be changed into another man. And the Bible goes on to say in 1 Samuel 10 that when he encountered the prophets, when Saul encountered the prophets, he became another man. I'd like to propose to you that he didn't become a different man he was supposed to be. He was changed back into the man he was supposed to be in the first place. Okay, why am I saying this? Because I believe prophetic ministry can tell you who you're supposed to be, but it's prophetic culture that turns you into the person you're supposed to be. Listen, I think that it's only in the culture of covenant Germany that there's only in the culture of community of covenant that germinates your word and actually brings it to fruition. I think part of being in Randy's network, part of being in a local church, part of being in fellowship is that you have prophetic words, you have a future, but it takes the cocoon of community to actually give birth to that word. And people are walking around with 15, 20 words, and they refuse to be a part of a body because there's imperfect leadership. And what happens is there's no germination, and they wonder why their words never come to pass. I'd like to also point out that King Saul turned into a king, as Samuel said, but it wasn't very long before he went back to being the insecure, jealous man that he was. And he begins to be jealous of David. He begins to want to kill David. You remember the story. He chases him for 14 years. And 3 times when he's just about to apprehend David, the prophets come down from the mountain and they encounter Saul. And when Saul encounters the prophets, he rips his clothes off and he begins to prophesy with the prophets. And my point is, every time he comes into the community he's supposed to be with, he turns back into the man he's supposed to be. Everyone's trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? And my question to you is, who are you supposed to be with? Because you were born to be in covenant. You know, Paul talked about the body of Christ and that every member plays a different role. How many know if you're the hand, it might be good if you knew the knee, but you have a relationship with the arm, or you don't have a relationship, or you don't have a purpose. Like the hand doesn't have a purpose without the arm. Good word, Kris. Okay, anyway. No? That was better than your response, but I'm pointing out two things. One is we need to create covenant communities where we begin to know people after the Spirit. And part of the challenge is instead of knowing people after the Spirit, instead of knowing people future, present, and that being our motto, our motto has been familiarity breeds contempt, and a prophet has honor except for in his hometown. And I want to tell you, when Jesus said that, it was a complaint. He was in his hometown and he was saying, I can do miracles everywhere but you. It wasn't supposed to be that way. He was saying, that's the way it is here. But how about if it wasn't that way? How about if you started to know your children after the Spirit? If you train up a child in the way they should go, not just as Christians, but in the way they should go. What if you knew little Mary in the way she should go? If you got prophetic dreams and you began to raise her